I bid you all good morning, good evening, and good night, wherever you may be watching this transmission. It is I, Mike Martins, bringing you a very housing discussion for Canada. And I don't care where you are in the Commonwealth, if you're in Australia, New Zealand, the United Kingdom, or Western United States, you need to watch this because it's kind of going to play, it's kind of a big playing field, the Commonwealth. Where money is going to be parked, where money is going to be moving around, which casinos are going to be hit with laundering. It's all patterns happening all over. Even if Ireland's even facing this problem. So affordability issues happening all over the place. And I don't know why we're not protesting affordability issues on the streets. Actually, the Irish did last summer. Because the Irish started seeing a strange phenomena of bidding wars. Now bidding wars are hitting parts of the U.S., and we're going to see what happens as the economy reopens, what is happening. Anyways, let's shift over to article scan here. Guys, do not forget to set your reminders for trends in the housing market, upcoming shows, live shows. If you wish to call in and be part of the show, you're more than welcome. And here it is, guys. We got a very good, well-written article here from Better Dwelling. And let's get to it and see what they have to say. So depending on where you are in Canada, the housing market has been a kind of a pick and choose market, in my opinion, where it started in Vancouver in 2010 after the Olympics, when everybody sold their property. Like, all the Canadians sold their property right after the Olympics because they thought it was going to crash in 2010. And man, did it ever not crash. And man, did it ever go to the moon from there. So job losses climb in Toronto and Vancouver, while unemployment rate hits records. Climb in Toronto and Vancouver, while unemployment rate hits records. So, it's happening. People are losing their jobs. But the thing is, on the other flip end of the coin, a lot of the properties, the luxury properties, big end properties, they're not owned by people that live in Canada anyway. So somebody losing their job in Canada that's a renter doesn't really have to work. It doesn't affect. It's more the people that get affected are the people that own and live in the country. Right? The people that own and live overseas, there's some people that own 200-300 units and don't live in the country, right? And they don't care if there's no, their property sits there, their money is out of their country, right? So here it is, guys. Canadian employment numbers climbed, but not all regions were so lucky. The StatsCan Labor Force Survey, LFS, shows the number of people employed made their first post-pandemic increase in May, despite the increase in jobs. The rate of unemployment climbed even higher as more people began searching for work. This trend was amplified in major real estate markets like Toronto and Vancouver. So Quebec was responsible for 80% of jobs last month. So there it is. Quebec accounted for a vast majority of all jobs created in a monthly period. The LFS estimated 231,000 of the job increases in May were in Quebec, about 80% of total across Canada. So Quebec made up a huge chunk of the job gains. So Canadian Unemployment Labor Force Survey, this is seasonally adjusted numbers for people employed in Canada according to the Labor Force Survey. So there it is. And I don't know if that's a dead cat bounce and it's going to go further, but it's going to have to take another quarter to see, right? Unemployment reaches record high. Canada's unemployment rate reached the highest level that can be readily compared. The rate of unemployment reached 13.7% in May, up 13.0% a month before. The data set only goes back to 1976, but this would be the highest rate in a few generations. So we know that, right? Prior to the pandemic, the unemployment rate was just 5.6%, so it has been a very fast climb. Breaking down major real estate markets, we see the trend of higher unemployment rates is still an issue as well. So then, let's say 1 out of 3 properties are foreign owned, or they're parked and they're sitting empty. Let's just say, right? So if the people rent, then how would the people? This won't affect it will affect the overall housing market in time when the tenants that live in the country that bought these properties for investment properties, not ones to keep empty, then that becomes another issue, right? So it's a very touchy issue because in the 80s, we didn't have people buy properties. Well, I think actually in the early 80s, I don't think you could just buy a property in Canada, and just leave it empty for like 20 years. I don't think you could do that back in the early 80s. I think if you bought a property, you either had to live in it or rent it out, or you had to like be Canadian to do that. I don't think you could just buy 50 properties and leave them empty and take off. I don't think back in the 80s. So that's why in the 80s you had a more of a tied to housing issue with employment. That's why this housing market kind of crumbled a bit, dipped, crumbled, plateaued, crumbled. Then there's parts of it resurging, believe it or not. So Toronto unemployment climbs 11.2%. Toronto is seeing unemployment rise and participation fall. Not ideal individually, but it's bad news together. The rate of unemployment reached 11.2% in May, up from 7.99% just a month before. The participation rate, the percentage of people working age that are participating in the labor force, fell 61.4%, down from 63.3%. Canada's biggest real estate markets see unemployment rates rise. So again, Canada's biggest real estate markets, how much of it is predominantly owned by Canadians? That's the thing. A lot of the average Canadians, it's like the city of London. I was talking to somebody yesterday night, which would be like early morning in London. They were telling me, Mike, you're right. A majority of housing in London isn't owned by the locals that live here. Like, it's all empty. It's all empty, and it's all investment property. It's owned by severely wealthy people that have a lot of money. It's not the locals. London's been a playground for the wealthy for years. And when they build these new towers, they're all luxury, and they don't even present them to the people that live in England. So Canada's biggest real estate market sees unemployment rates rise. So here it is. So these are the biggest real estate markets, right? So we got February, March, April, so averagely a seasoned. But then how many of these cities here with unemployment, these higher levels of unemployment, how many of those people are actually tied to real estate where they own the property, not rent? That's the main question now. How many of these working people that lost their jobs actually own these properties? That's the main question here. How heavily tied is real estate to actual Canadians, working middle-class Canadians? How much of it is tied to them now? Vancouver's unemployment rate reached 10.7%. Montreal's unemployment rate soars 14%. And this is from our friends at Better Dwelling. You guys check this out. Better Dwelling always has some good stories and things to talk about. So this one came out of Toronto. Yeah, Toronto, Ontario. Brampton area. Basically, family says they were denied housing because they're black. Wow, really? So, but this is an interesting story. Like, let me play it for you guys.
After they say a landlord refused to rent them a unit even though they had paid their first and last month's rent. They believe the refusal was racially motivated. A human rights lawyer tells us anti-black racism is entrenched in the housing market, preventing excellent tenants from securing a place to live.
I never thought it would happen to me, to be honest with you. I was so shocked.
Searching for a place to live with her family was already a burden amid a global pandemic, but made even worse after Roxanne Lemonius says she believes she was refused housing because of the color of her skin.
Okay, so like go a little bit deeper in the story. Watch this. So the person that's renting it out does not deny that he refused her. Watch this.
I've lived here in Canada since I was like 4. And you grew up in like, this is like the most multicultural place ever, right? And to see it happen so blatant, and I had my baby, like that to me was the hardest part, and it's still the hardest part.
Last weekend, she and her husband, along with their 7-month-old baby, were supposed to move into a rental in Brampton. But after seeing them for the first time, the landlord wouldn't give them a key.
Nope, he didn't know we were black. And even when we came out the car and he seen us, you could see the look on his face. Like, it was like, he was so taken back, and he was trying to be nice, but he looked at us like, like, what are you doing here? Like, you're not supposed to be here.
And she's not lying. That's the thing. She's not lying. That's the thing. Like, instead of, I don't know how people don't see a family coming to the house. Oh, these people are going to rent my house. A family approaching and be like, wow, what a beautiful young family. Congratulations on the new kid. This is good. This is a good move on you. And I don't understand.
Roxanne and her family had abided by the terms of the lease agreement, paying their first and last month's rent, but after meeting them, the landlord asked for 6 months' rent up front, an illegal request.
Landlords who have engaged in discrimination will often try to float alternate explanations for their behavior.
We called the landlord to hear his side of the story.
Landlord.
Hello?
Hi, is this Mahindra?
Mahindra.
He redirected us to his lawyer.
You can contact my lawyer. I can give you my lawyer's number and talk to them.
We did.
Hello, good afternoon.
But his lawyer then told us to contact the landlord's realtors to find out what the dispute was about.
Hello.
We did. The realtors told us they would call us back, but never did.
It's outrageous. Like, I'm angry, but I'm more sad because of my baby. Like, that's what makes me the saddest.
Discrimination in the housing market is prevalent in Ontario, according to human rights lawyers.
The idea of renting while black is a very real struggle for many people in Ontario who face challenges securing housing for no other reason than the color of their skin.
Ontario
Wow.
is behind in collecting data on racial discrimination.
Of course, they're behind on that. You know, Canada just keeps playing at this. We're not a racist country, but they completely took down all the articles where they shut down an entire mall in downtown Toronto, Dufferin Mall, and anyone that had the mall was shut down, and you had to prove that you were allowed to be in Canada, and if you weren't, you'd be put on a bus and sent to Portugal, because that was in a predominant Portuguese area. But all those stories get hidden. Like, none of that stuff gets, you know what I'm saying, or holding back the children in high school that spoke Portuguese in the gymnasium and getting their parents in to bring paperwork in to prove. If not, they stay there till 2-3 in the morning till a shuttle comes and picks them up and takes them to the airport and deports them from Canada. Like, Canada, they got to stop playing this "it's not a racist country" thing, because it doesn't look good it looks great on the big picture, but it looks bad for the people living here, because it's like, what are they, you know what I'm saying? But anyways, qualifying for an uninsured mortgage will get tougher in Canada. Toronto home prices are up, but CMHC is responding to an expected market drop by tightening rules of prospective buyers. Again, who is this going to target? It's going to target first-time home buyers, and it's going to target existing home buyers that want to sell, potentially can't sell to a customer because a potential buyer, because they can't qualify after. So this is a very dangerous domino, a very dangerous thin ice surface to be skating on right now. So everything's over $1 million. So especially where parts of Canada you're in, it gets tougher and tougher. Toronto could build more affordable housing. Why won't it? We could discuss this till we're blue in the face. We had this problem in Vancouver. They did not build more affordable housing in Vancouver because it's just simply not profitable. And builders want to build, like in Seattle recently in Seattle in the last year and a half, they have built a ton of beautiful luxury condos in downtown Seattle, luxury condominiums in downtown Seattle, and unfortunately, it's all empty. It's all owned by corporate numbers, and entire floors are purchased. Like, entire floors in some of the buildings are purchased by one person, and they just leave them empty, right? So that's really interesting how that's happening. But because there's no profit behind it, they'd rather build. The builders would rather build and keep stuff empty and sell off to foreign interests than build and keep the money locally. It just goes to show that local average wage earners are not making nearly enough money, especially with wages and not moving in about 40 years. Home sales are slightly up in Calgary, but still way off 2019 numbers. So Calgary looks like home sales are starting to sell in the region. Calgary's housing market just over 1,000 units were sold in the region last month. So Calgary is seeing a little bit of uptick in sales. Housing market on the long road to recovery. This is in metropolitan Edmonton area. They are seeing an uptick in sales right now. They had saw a decrease of 21%, but a lot of Canadians are flocking there because the single-family home is still benchmarked at $353,000. So it's not that bad. It's definitely a market that people could afford to get into. We're running out of affordable markets in Canada. We're in another 5 years. everyone will scramble to affordable. So this will tie into this from the Edmonton Journal. Mid to low priced homes will dominate the market. We discussed this on Trends again on the housing market, where the one bedroom, the 2-3 bedroom condos, the semi-detached home and the townhome are always hot commodities in a market, in an unaffordability market, because those are the cheaper units. And FOMO, I believe you're gonna in Q4 of this year, FOMO's gonna run rampant. I think FOMO's gonna run huge. I think FOMO's gonna be at the top, and people are gonna be afraid of getting bought out again of the markets. And as Canada burns away affordability in major Vancouver, I mean, you need to make at least $200,000 to $300,000 a year to live a decent lifestyle. $200,000 to $300,000 large a year. Lower mainland Vancouver, Burnaby, $180,000 to $260,000, and all the way up to Hope, you need to make at least $90,000 to $140,000 a year. So that the whole region of British Columbia is gone. It's sold to the highest bidder. And then Toronto's seeing the same thing. Even parts of New Brunswick is seeing this same phenomena happening. It's weird, but it's happening. And signs of life in Toronto housing as sales surged 53% from April. This is from B&M Bloomberg. And activity in Canada's largest housing market wrapped up in May after going into a deep freeze at the onset of the COVID. And the local real estate board says the momentum should continue as long as there aren't any setbacks in reopening the economy. So this COVID thing was a very interesting thing. We've had a lot of protests because of another country's problem. We've been having a lot of protests here in Canada about it, and Ireland and Scotland and England and in Australia and in New Zealand because of something that happened in America. And okay, COVID is still not cleared, but the amount, tens of thousands of people coming up and out and about and shoulder to shoulder, it's going to be very interesting to see where things are going to lead to in the next 2 to 3 weeks, to see how many cases start popping up from COVID. If none pop up, then that's another discussion for another time, guys, on Mike in the Night. The average selling price for all homes across the GTA last month was about $863,000. So the average person with property tax in the GTA right now going up, and the cost of just everything going up, you need to make on average about $143,000 to live an average lifestyle. So you need to make the average wage earner should be the average wage income, home income should be $143,000. Right? Oh yeah, but then you got taxes on that. So you only take home like 90 after. Yeah, Canada's just in a cluster F right now. If current market conditions are sustained during the gradual reopening of the GTA economy and moderate pace year over year, price growth could continue as we move through spring and summer months. So there it is, guys. This is a article from yesterday. And I kind of wanted to throw this out there. A lot of people here in Canada watch this channel. A lot of people, if I go to my analytics, it varies. Sometimes Australia is the number one country that watches me. One time it was the United States. And then sometimes it's Canada. And then I've never had New Zealand, but New Zealand is always in my top 5 most watched countries. That watches me, which is really good. Always in my top 5. Like it's always United States first, then Australia, then Canada, then like UK, and then New Zealand, and that's the order all the time of viewership that I get with whatever YouTube decides they want to tell me. So there it is, guys. Your wrap up for the housing, guys. Don't forget to set your reminders here for trends in the housing market. Domino rally correction this Wednesday. Mike in the Night in touch with the ground this Saturday, and trends in the housing market next week. I can't sell my home. And in 2 weeks from now, Mike in the Night on June 20th, Mike in the Night, Aurora Borealis comes in view. Don't forget to set your reminders for this. And if you don't get a notification, I am very sorry. A lot of people did not get notifications for Mike in the Night. So a lot of people message me. A lot of people on Instagram and all those websites message me. Anyways, guys, let me know what's happening in your neck of the woods. Affordability crisis still gripping Canada. This housing crisis looks like it's been somewhat resilient to what has been happening with this whole COVID thing. Comment below. I look forward to reading your comments. Thank you.